Let's do a check now on how the province is, where we stand. I want to bring back in Dr. Raywat Deonandan. He's an epidemiologist, science communicator at the University of Ottawa. It's time to check in and see how we're doing since the last time we spoke. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well. How is the province doing, in your opinion, as you watch the numbers?
The province is doing well. I mean, we've had a total of about 20,000 total cases since the epidemic began, and only about 4,000 of those, fewer than 4,000, are active. So our active load is dropping significantly, and I think we're on track to be done the first wave of this epidemic by mid-June, I would say. Don't hold me to that, of course,
right.
But the numbers are trending in that direction. So I'm an optimist, as always, and I see that our public health investments are paying dividends now.
I have been waiting for someone on your side of the spectrum, as opposed to my side in media and in the public, to sort of give us some sort of target date in our mind. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. It'll give us something to hold on to. Now, as you see, we get closer and closer to the long weekend and then into June, and the numbers are going to continue to drop. And by the way, in the province next to us, they have twice as many numbers, and they have huge number of active cases, and it's nowhere near in terms of starting to taper off that we are here. So let's celebrate the victories.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Take the victories as they come, and let's not use that as a reason to limit or slow down our discipline.
What about the second wave? It's not a sure thing, but more likely than not?
I would say so. That's the way these epidemics tend to unroll.
Yeah.
They come in waves. And the distance between the waves is dependent upon our public health investments in between them. So if we are flagrant with our social distancing and mask wearing and opening up too many things quickly, then the second wave will come faster. And if we are more disciplined, the second wave might not come at all, or when it does come, it'll be small that we don't even notice it if we do everything right.
From what I know, the Spanish flu, back at the turn of last century, or closer to the beginning of the century, we had a wave in May and then a second wave, which was far more deadly, in September. What did they do then that we have to make sure we don't do now?
When the first wave was done during the Spanish flu, people just flocked into the streets and started behaving as if the first wave had never happened. So they did not incorporate the lessons they learned by social distancing and appropriate hand hygiene and keeping away from infected people. And that caused the disease to explode far more. So we can learn a lot from that experience, to not take it for granted, all of the sacrifices we have made these past few weeks, the enormous amounts of treasure we have lost, the suffering that people have undertaken economically. Let's not make that all for naught, and let's continue our discipline such that the second wave is not a brutal one.
Well, the measures we've taken and respected for the most part, and clearly a lot of celebrating going on internally with, not ready to exhale yet, but holding your breath through this, because it's far less a serious problem as we thought it was going to be. When it comes for that second wave, do you think they may have to start to close down some of the things they've reopened if we get it wrong?
Yeah, it may come to that. And some of the things that we have to prepare for are universities, schools.
Right.
If we open schools in September, we have to be ready to pull the plug quickly if that second wave starts to manifest. I know many universities in Ontario are planning to start online in the fall, which I think is a responsible thing to do. It's easier to transition from online to in person than the other way around. So
and
prepare for the hard thing.
A lot of universities, I believe this morning the U of Ottawa said that you can sign up and continue, even if the schools are reopened, you can still continue online. And that's the kind of thing we need to do.
Yeah, give people options.
Right.
We're transitioning into the phase of panic management as well.
Well said.
We have to stop, fearing our fellow citizen.
Right.
And when this is over, a return to normalcy is a psychological return as well. So this is not just an epidemiologist game; it's all hands on deck, including psychologists and media people.
So, do you think forever that we'll see? Well, maybe not forever. That's a long time. The stay-at-home, working from home aspect, where we'll still be able to live somewhat normal lives, but 9 to 5, just to err on the side of caution, if possible, a lot of us work from home.
One of the lessons that we've learned from this experience is that most people can work from home,
right?
Especially those in the white collar. So why wouldn't you? And many coursework can be done online as well. Meetings don't have to be in person. They can be done by a video conference in your pajamas. Why not? So these are some things I think are going to stay with us so long as the technology is available. And as long as we have an infectious disease threat in the community, that should always be an option for people, again, to control the anxiety.
You know, the car sector is killing us right now. They're screaming, "What do you mean? People don't have to drive to work every day and buy a second car?" I mean, there's going to be a price to pay for some sectors are going to take a hit if we continue this way.
This is always the case.
Yeah.
As advancements in society roll forward, whether it's technological or disease-based, we're going to have to change.
All right. Herd immunity. Is that still part of this discussion? I mean, we're talking about contact tracing. We're talking about testing for antibodies. Where are we in that?
Right. So herd immunity comes in one of two ways, either through natural infection, which is the rough way, or artificial infection through vaccines. And it's always preferable to do it through vaccines for a number of reasons. Your previous guest talked about the horrible experiences that people with this disease have, and we don't want to go through that if we can avoid it. Secondly, is natural infection may give you a tepid kind of limited immunity. Many people, apparently, those that aren't well infected, may not produce antibodies at all. Whereas we can titrate and calibrate a vaccine to provide the sufficient immune response to give you immunity, we hope. And so as we wait for the vaccine, I think it's a mistake to try to infect a lot of people to get to that herd immunity stage. You'll pay a huge price for that. Where are we right now in terms of, the number of people infected? We don't really know, except that some attempts have been made to compute the number of Canadians who are currently infected. Angus Reid had a poll recently to try to determine the number of households showing COVID-like symptoms, and they subtracted those that are likely to flu. And they estimate that about 150,000 households in Canada are probably affected by COVID, which means if you assume 4 people per household, that's about 600,000 people, or about 1.6% of the population. A far cry from the 40 to 70% needed for herd immunity. So we are nowhere near there yet.
That being said, the way we're rolling it out in phases and managing the effects on our healthcare system and the demand and the toll on our is this we're continuing to see this going in the right direction that will increase those numbers adequately? Lives are going to be lost in the meantime, unfortunately, but would those lives be lost anyway?
I don't like that approach.
No.
The assumption there is we're simply managing the process of people through the system, assuming they're going to get infected anyway. Another way to look at it is we can prevent those infections in the first place and prevent the suffering. I would prefer the second path. I know people talk a lot about the Swedish approach, which we assume is the first path, and it might not be because they overtly state that their goal is not herd immunity.
Well, their average age of death there is 81. They're saying, well, they're in their final years anyway, and I mean, is that a justification?
That's an ethical question.
Yeah,
I don't like it. Everyone has a right to life, and those few extra months of life are precious. Why take it away from someone for that reason?
Well, you know the argument, right? The argument is you're asking for a small portion of the population, the rest of us to put our lives on hold and the economy on hold. Now, that's the ethical and the debate and the balancing act that people smarter than me anyway have to have.
Yeah, and I'm glad I'm not making that decision.
Right.
But if I had a vote, I would choose to respect the sanctity of life. And I think we can do so in a way that mitigates the impact on the economy, as we will soon see. As the economy opens up in a strategic, safe way, we can return the flow of cash into our lives without threatening the safety of most of our people.
The elder population is the most vulnerable. Do you see, as we continue to move forward, that they'll be the last to be, released, shall we say, from the pandemic measures?
I think that's a likely scenario, barring technological advances. There are some really promising treatments coming down the pathway, including monoclonal antibodies. So if we can refine those treatments, we can give people a passive temporary immunity. So that's like spitting down antibodies in a lab, injecting healthcare workers or the incredibly sick with them, so that they don't have to get sick.
Is it a lower viral load? Is that what does it?
I wouldn't put it that way.
Okay.
It's more it's giving antibodies produced elsewhere into someone who needs them now.
Okay.
And it may not last very long, but it gives them that short-term protection in preparation for a vaccine. So if that can be rolled out quickly enough, then we can make these individuals more accessible to society.
Perfect. I always appreciate your discussion. It's we learn a lot. Dr. Raywat Deonandan, epidemiologist, science communicator, and that's a key thing right there. You can communicate science very well, Doc, at the University of Ottawa. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Bye-bye.
When we come back.